Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us on this Tuesday evening, is it? Gosh, I don't even know what day we're on. Wednesday evening, even in January. So thank you all for joining us this evening. So as Carla said, my name's Seema. So I work for Fertility Network UK also, but I work in the Fertility in the Workplace department. And basically today is all about how we can help anybody going through fertility in the workplace, whether you're an employer, an employee. I know, Carla, you said we've had some questions sent in, so we can run through those at the end. But if you've got any questions, just save them for the end. And, you know, a lot of the questions may be covered in the presentation. I promise I won't bore you with the presentation, but some of the things that I wanted to share with you are quite interesting and may cover some of the bits that been thinking about. So just a bit of background about me. As most people in this charity, I myself have gone through 9 rounds of IVF and have had not very nice time in the workplace while I was going through my treatments. Hence why I'm part of this department, because I'm fighting for change, because no woman or their partner should have to go through a horrible time at work while they're going through fertility treatment, which is not very nice in itself. So before I actually start, I just want to, you know, I know that some of you may be going through fertility treatment, or you may know somebody, or, you know, a family member, or you just want to find out more. So I just kind of wanted to say, just be kind to yourself during the presentation. You know, we will be looking at things that may affect some of you or are affecting some of you. Always get all the support that you need, and I'm going to tell you how to do that. But us as a charity, you know, we've got various support groups and specific ones like for male, South Asian, etc., that can help you. We've got a helpline, webinars, e-newsletter. So, you know, please don't feel like you're alone going through this. There are lots of people going through this, and we want to support you as a charity. So please do reach out. At the end of the presentation, I will leave you my email address, which is the Fertility in the Workplace one. So if you want to ask a question, but you just don't want to ask it tonight, please feel free to email us privately, and we will email you back and set up a call if needs be. So one in 6 of us go through fertility treatment, which is why this is such a big thing for employers to understand, so that we can reach out to these people, because 1 in 6 is a lot. Obviously, you know, I'm sure most of you know a lot about fertility treatment, having gone through it yourself or going through it yourself. But I kind of just wanted to relate it to the workplace, which is what we're all here for today, and the impact that it has. We did a survey. We've done lots of surveys over the years, and last year we did one with Fatifa, which is our most recent survey, and had the most respondents. 75% of people said that having treatment affected their day-to-day work. And I would put myself in that category 100%. When you've got appointments, when you have to inject yourself, when you're waiting in the 2-week wait, whatever part of the journey that you're on, when you're sitting at work in your day-to-day role, it's really difficult to concentrate. I know now some of us are working from home. Since COVID, things were a little bit different. When I had my treatment, it was pre-COVID, so I was in the office 5 days a week. But either way, it's really difficult. 18% of people that we surveyed reduced their hours or resigned, which is just totally, in today's society, not acceptable. 30% took time off for appointments without telling their employer the real reason. And obviously there's twofold reason for that. It could be because they just don't want to reveal what they're going through, as most people don't want to tell people that they're going through fertility treatment, or that they want to keep themselves private, or actually maybe their employer would have said, actually, no, you can't have time off for that. 78% said a company's fertility policy and support was a huge consideration when looking for a new job, which is massive. And we had a question actually from somebody, and I'm going to answer it now because it fits in with this. If you're looking for a new job and you want to know what the company's fertility policy is, you can, at interview stage, ask for the employee handbook, so that you can go through it. So you don't have to say, I want to know what your fertility policy is, because let's be honest, I think most of us wouldn't feel comfortable doing that, but you can ask for the employee handbook. And in that, if they do have a fertility policy, it would be in there. So something worth considering if you're thinking about moving into a new job and want to know what the policy is, you can actually ask for that. You can even ask for it before interview stage as well. Companies, they do have to give it to you. But that figure is huge, and I think that's really grown over the years, because I think more and more people are looking at that. Over my time here, I am shocked at the different policies that there are, or lack of. Only 25% of people said that their workplace had a supportive workplace policy, which is just crazy when you think about there are policies for absolutely everything. But we are getting fertility in the workplace. We are getting more and more companies contacting us, large companies, small companies, saying, can you help us write a policy? Can you help us amend a policy? So I think we're getting there, but it's very slow. The reality, I think most employers think, if you say I'm going through fertility treatment, they kind of think, oh my gosh, she's going to be off for ages. No, reality is it's not the case. On average, you need, this is an average, and it varies from person to person, about 8 days per cycle. And that includes appointments, embryo transfer if you get to that stage, egg collection, and that's kind of what we're talking about here. And this pie chart shows on average what people take off. 50% of people took a week off, 24% took 2 weeks off, 15% took 3 weeks off, and 11% took more. And it obviously varies from person to person. Everybody going through treatment reacts differently. It depends on your job, whether it's a physical demanding job. It depends on whether it's mentally challenging for you. It can be a range of reasons for why one person wants 1 day and somebody wants 5. For some people that I speak to, actually, they would rather go to work because, they don't want to think about what they're doing in terms of fertility treatment. So kind of work's a bit of a distraction. For some people, they just want to sit at home and, not think about anything else. We're just all different. And I think that's where the variation comes in from. So let's now talk about what we currently get, which is not a lot. So currently, there is no legal right for time off for IVF. Now, this is something that as a charity, we are campaigning for. And we will get there one day, but it's a really long process. So currently, whoever you work for, they have no legal obligation to give you time off. IVF appointments are up to the company. And again, in the work that I've done, and I'm talking from really large multinational companies to one-man bands, it's just crazy the difference between every company out there. It's entirely up to the company whether they give you time off for appointments. What I will say at this stage is what we find is if you've got somebody who's gone through treatment in your company, who's part of the management system, they kind of want to campaign for change. So they're the companies that we see more often fighting for other employees, which is not, it's not really fair that that's what it takes. It shouldn't really be like that. But that's just, giving you my experience of having worked in this department. That's kind of where the change is coming from. But I think it's getting better. So if you're lucky to get to embryo transfer stage, pregnancy rights do kick in at that point. If you have a successful round and you're pregnant and you have obviously that, then you then go into maternity legislation. So after your embryo transfer, you have 2 weeks where obviously I don't know where you have a 2-week wait to know if the embryo has stuck to lining. Most people who've gone through treatment would know about this. If you don't, happy to go through this later. But if you are successful, obviously then your maternity right kicks in after 2 weeks and the legislation is there. But after embryo stage, if you have an unsuccessful round, so after your 2-week wait, you are still protected by law against pregnancy discrimination for 2 weeks. It's not a lot, but it just gives you that protection around that time. So it's worth knowing, because I think a lot of people don't know that. Like I said, policies and guidelines vary considerably. I mean, I could write a whole list here. There are some that don't give any leave. There are some that give 2 days, one for egg collection, one for embryo transfer. Some get 1 week leave, some get unlimited leave. It just varies. There is no guideline. When we've done our research, I think the average we find is that a company gives 10 days off for a year. And obviously the argument there is that somebody might go through 4 cycles in 1 year. And for myself, this was one of the issues that I had. I had to fight for 3 days. And when my cycle after cycle wasn't successful, I was told that I've been given those 3 days. And I was like, yeah, but I need another 3 for the next cycle, but I wasn't given them. And I think that's where the lack of understanding about fertility treatment comes in. Employee rights and policies should always include employee confidentiality, flexible working, and there should be some form of counselling and support available through occupational health or, something. So a little bit about what we do, because it's quite important, because we could definitely help most of you on this call. We're part of Fertility Network UK, and we were set up because the charity found that people experiencing infertility were reluctant to speak to their employer because they felt that it would have a detrimental effect on their career. So what we do is we help educate and support companies in understanding the impact of fertility issues. What is infertility? Because actually a lot of people don't know. And how they can support employees. We've got years of experience working with small and large companies. And to be honest, we do see change where we've gone in, because you'll speak to people who don't know anyone who's gone through treatment. And they're like, oh, we didn't know that. We didn't know that, because all that they see is what they've seen in the media or what somebody might have told them. And that is the biggest part of change, is information. We need to start educating and providing information to organizations so that they can support their employees. I don't know if you can see this, but it's quite small, but I just wanted to quickly go through some of the bits that we do. I'm not going to go into great detail. You can go onto our website and see exactly what we do, but we help write fertility policies for companies. In fact, I've written 2 this week already. We're just inundated at the moment, and we can help amend them as well. We do lunch and learn webinars. So what we do is we go into a company. So we do a call very similar to this, so like a lunch and learn, and we talk about the basics. So what is infertility? Who does it affect? What does a treatment cycle look like? Etc., etc. And then we do various training off that. So we do a line manager session, which is just for line managers, and we provide them with a toolkit on how they can support anybody in their team who's going through fertility treatment. And then we do lots of other sort of webinars off that, but basically it's all topics around fertility. We also host workplace health and wellbeing sessions where we come in and we have experts, whether it's a yoga expert, nutritionist, who'll come into a company and do a Zoom call and just kind of talk to people. We do fertility workshops, as I mentioned, for line managers and HR teams, because actually HR and line managers are the 2 key fundamental areas in a company that need to understand this. And obviously small companies don't have this, and the setup is very different. So, we work with all self-employed companies as well. We've got a whole library of resources, workplace packs, posters, fact sheets that people can do and read and put around the office if they need to, or on the intranet. One thing that we find is, I wouldn't say line managers, that's probably just, some people are very scared to know about this subject because they're embarrassed. They don't want to know about it. They don't need to know about it, so they're kind of reluctant. So we kind of provide a safe place where people can come and ask us questions. We also offer one-to-one support and advice to employers and employers on all sorts of things, but particularly we support women and men on how to talk to your employer, and how you can get emotional support. And actually that's what I'm going to move on to now, because I know we've had quite a few questions about this, about well, actually, how do you speak to your employer? You know, what do you have to do? What are the do's and the don'ts? And actually, you know, it just varies on you as a person and I guess your line manager. But starting the conversation, you know, it is so normal to feel overwhelmed. Going through fertility treatment is overwhelming in itself. The whole process, the stage that you're at in life, it's really, really tough. And then to have to go and speak to a line manager to say, well, actually, I'm going to need time off for appointments, blah, 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 blah. You know, it just adds to the pressure that you're already feeling. And that's what we talk to companies about, that, you know, this person's already going through so much. And by you being negative and you not supporting them, you're just adding to their already really difficult time. This second point is a real difficult one. And I know it doesn't sound it, but communicate. I know myself when I went through treatment, you know, you don't want to tell people because you don't want to jinx it. And, you know, and I totally understand that. And I've tried both. And I've spoken to lots of people in this job, and I feel that it is important to tell your employer, because without them supporting you, it's a really lonely place. And I think that you don't have to tell them everything, but if you don't give them the chance to support them, then they can't do it. You don't have to, doesn't have to be a line manager. If you feel you can't talk to your line manager, there might be somebody else in management or somebody else in your company that you can talk to. It does not have to be your line manager. Obviously, we would recommend that's the first route you go down because it will just make your life easier. But if you can't talk to that person, that's okay. Remember to share only what you feel comfortable with. You know, you don't have to tell your employer everything. But there are benefits because, you know, as with fertility treatment, you know, you might need appointments for short notice. Let's all be honest. You know, I know that I've gone for a scan and then my next appointment wasn't until next week, but something showed up in my scan and they were like, actually, can you come back tomorrow morning? So, you know, I then had to go back to my boss and say, you know, this is the case. And, you know, he wasn't very understanding, but that's, you know, it was my journey. But if you don't tell your employer, then they can't help you. And then, you know, things like appointments get a bit stressful. Everyone's got their own journey with their own needs. You know, if you're a line manager yourself and you are managing a team, if you've got 2 people in your team going through fertility treatment, you know, they're going to be completely different. You know, some people, like I said, want to share everything about their life, their journey. Some people don't. And it's just about respecting that. And a lot of the policies that we write, that's one of the things we put in there, is that you have to respect the person who's going through the journey, you know, their privacy. Check your company's fertility policy. You know, they might have one. You never know. Always check first. If they don't, discuss the options with your HR or your line manager. You know, say, look, this is what I did. You know, there is no fertility policy. What can we do here? Because, you know, should I take it off as paid, unpaid, time off? You know, you have to work with your employer, but they also have to work with you. Be confident in your approach. You know, don't feel scared. Don't feel that you're not entitled to these things. You know, the World Health Organization defines infertility as a disease. It's a medical condition, and it should be treated as such. So when you've got appointments, they should be treated as medical appointments. So be confident, you know, speak to them. You know, what does support look like for you going forward? What are the practical implications? You know, do you need a fridge to store your medication? Do you need somewhere private to inject yourself? You know, what reasonable adjustments might help? Is there a colleague within your team who can take that project off you during those 2 months because you know that you won't be able to handle it? I know I say this very frequently and it sounds really easy, but it's just making sure that, you know, you're confident and, you know, don't be scared, I think. And tell your line manager or HR, whoever you're talking to, you know, what emotional support that you will help at this time. One thing that we find on the other side is that managers say to us, well, I didn't know they were going through it. I didn't know this. They said they were going to take their dog to the vet or whatever it was. So, you know, give them the chance. If they're not very good when you've given them the chance, that's a different story. But you need to give them the chance to be able to support you. And then, you know, some of the top tips that we would say is point your employer to external resources for further information, such as Fertility Network. We've got loads and loads of information, but, you know, help them as well. Sit down with them, create a plan together to prioritize treatment. Sit down with them and really make sure it's a two-way process. And provide your employer with updates throughout the process if you want to. If you don't, that's up to you. But just do whatever works for you. Your employer must understand that the process is mentally and physically exhausting, so they need to be flexible, and ongoing support is essential. And that's where us training staff and coming into companies and talking to them, that's where that helps, because they can get to understand it a bit more, because actually sometimes all it is a lack of understanding. And always remember to be kind to yourself, because that's the most important thing when you're going through this process. I've kind of whizzed through that because I didn't really want to go through PowerPoint side for ages, but I think one of the takeaways that I would say is that companies are getting better. Some of you might not feel like that, but that change is coming, and it's coming very slowly. And if you feel that you want to be the person that helps make that change, then be that person. I know myself, if I'd stayed in my company, I would have done something about it. But you don't have to as well. I think it's just doing what you're comfortable with, because the most important thing is your journey.